Senate Republicans moved today on a plan to help pay for their tax reform bill by eliminating the so-called individual mandate, Obamacare's requirement that everyone in America have health insurance. That would result in 13 million more people without coverage.
The people this is going to hit are middle-class people that ostensibly this whole bill was supposed to be about helping.
But the move would also save the government $338 billion over the next 10 years. And that could come in very handy, because a lot of other ways to pay for the bill could be disappearing. It's almost like a game of whack-a-mole. The AARP wants to keep the tax deduction for medical expenses. The American Council on Education says a new proposed tax on university endowment income will make college tuition more expensive. The National Association of Realtors says eliminating state and local property tax deductions would discourage people from buying homes. But if you try to appease all of these groups by keeping their tax breaks, fiscal conservatives on the Hill pop up, shouting about how the bill blows up the deficit. It's a fight that Washington lobbyists have been anticipating for years.
Republicans have a clear goal in tax reform: cut taxes. But the GOP has to pay for at least some of the cuts. So they've got to either create new taxes or close loopholes. And that's where lobbyists come in. They're trying to win the fight and make tax reform favorable, or at least not detrimental, to those they represent. But if you're a lobbyist and you didn't get into the game until about 2 weeks ago, you're already behind. I talked to John Arensmeyer of the Small Business Majority about that.
We've been knowing there was going to be a tax bill. We've been doing polling, talking to people, educating people all along. And so we were ready when the bill came along.
When the first version of the House of Representatives bill dropped, what were you struck by as it relates to your constituency?
We were struck by how little in the bill did anything to help the average Main Street small business. As part of the bill, there's a provision to reduce the top pass-through rate that small businesses pay. However, that only impacts about 2.6% of small businesses.
The thing is, if lobbyists have done their job right, you can see it in the original bill text. Or more accurately, you don't see it because the winners, like big corporations, were able to make sure repealing their tax breaks never made it into the bill in the first place.
The problem is there are a lot of big corporate deductions out there. There's a $1 trillion cost to allowing a very small sliver of multinational corporations to defer their income and to leave it offshore. And they're not touching that.
And why do you think they're not reducing those deductions?
Well, I think that there's very powerful interests that are encouraging them to leave those deductions alone and to cut taxes.
One of those interests is the energy industry. Bloomberg reports that in the Senate version of the bill, quote, Republicans opted to leave tax subsidies for the energy industry almost entirely in place. Those tax breaks are worth a lot of money to energy companies, which are, unsurprisingly, big political donors.
I think there's a political imperative here being driven by their donors and others.
Just to ask it really bluntly, do you think those interests give more money to campaigns than you do?
Well, I think that's a fact that these interests give more money to campaigns than almost anybody else.